Hi, I'm Alaina Percival, CEO and co-founder of Women Who Code, a nonprofit that has grown to become the largest and most active community of technical women in the world.
And I'm Joey Rosenberg, Chief Product Officer here at Women Who Code. And today we are thrilled to be celebrating 10 years of community with Women Who Code. This is such an exciting point in the organization's journey and in our movement. Alaina, how does it feel to be celebrating 10 years?
It's unbelievable to be at this point, to have this moment of reflection on really everything that we've accomplished over the past 10 years. This small community group that got started in the Bay Area, which was, just this small community, and we were women in the tech industry at this time when the world started talking about the importance of teaching girls to code and teaching women to code. But for those of us in the industry, we knew we were already coming up against bias, having to prove ourselves and being viewed as more junior than we actually were. So this voice, this amazing voice of teach women to code, teach girls to code, really couldn't be whole without elevating the needs of the woman in the industry. And that's what Women Who Code has become.
And where were you professionally? Can you talk a little bit about that when kind of this big dream came about? What were you doing at the time, and what did that transition feel like for you?
Yeah, so Women Who Code came out of really out of my own personal career struggles. I had started off my career working in Germany for a company called Puma. So I'm in the sort of traditional product world. I went back and did an MBA, went to work for a small women's performance footwear company. And this is like the 2008 crisis hit. And, I move out to the Bay Area. And even though I had this strong career trajectory in traditional business, I was having a lot of trouble translating that to the tech industry. And I saw more and more that it was just absolutely critical that you have a technical background to be able to even be, a leader or an executive as every industry was going through a digital transformation, whether it was finance, healthcare, shipping, media, all of these industries were becoming technology industries. And with women so underrepresented in the tech industry and so underrepresented in leadership, it just seemed very clear to me that path needed to be bridged. And the fastest and most easiest way to do it was by supporting the talented, ambitious women that were already in the industry so that they could succeed and they could become role models for women and girls who are going to enter later on.
You talked a little bit about how this movement started as a community group in San Francisco. A couple of years later, you actually filed the paperwork to formalize the organization. What was that like? And why was that really important, an important part of the Women Who Code journey?
Yeah. So I think there was a moment where we had this amazing community group that almost felt like our little secret, but it became critical to form that nonprofit and to really begin expanding, because we realized that women around the world deserve to have the support, the network, and the opportunities that Women Who Code was affording to us. And that has always been something that's been very key. One of the first cities that we expanded to was international. Women Who Code is now in 134 countries. And so we've really stayed committed to having a global focus and supporting women around the world on their career journeys in technology.
Yeah, it has just been amazing to watch this organization grow. I remember when you and I first started talking about Women Who Code, and you were kind of in the midst of that community space and thinking about filing, and it was such an honor to be watching this organization and movement develop. And at the time I was in the global business space and in the nonprofit space. And I remember when you reached out to me and you were like, we're going to hire our next full-time person. We really need a person to lead the community and bring in all of these skills. What do you think that job description would look like? And I remember working with you on it. And as I was kind of looking at the words on the page, I thought, wait, I want this job. I want to be part of this movement. This is actually the work that needs to happen right now today to make an incredible impact in this industry and really for the world, because tech shapes the world that we interact with every day. The way we're having this very conversation is happening because of technology. And if we don't have women in the decision-making space and in the creating space and the implementing phase and all of those different areas, we all lose out, right? And so I was really excited about the idea of what this could be. And I often think back about to that time when that whole dream was just being formed, and it was such an exciting place to come into the movement. What do you wish people knew about that CEO, that founder journey, especially in those first couple of years when you look back to all of those kind of ideas being born and decisions being made? What do you wish people knew?
Well, first, Joey, I'll tell you a secret. I'd been talking to you for a while about Women Who Code and had viewed you as a thought leader. And when I came to you that day to have that conversation, I was hoping that you would realize that you were the perfect person to join the journey.
What a great tactic for recruiting, by the way.
It worked. Yeah, and we've gotten to be part of this journey together. This really bringing the organization from many different iterations. Honestly, it's just grown so quickly in so many different ways that it almost feels like we've gotten to start a new startup every year and a half because we really have the opportunity, are forced to reinvent ourselves as we grow and as the needs of our members and the industry and the world have changed. When I think back to that co-founder or that journey, I just I think it's the individual stories that I've gotten to hear about along the way that have gotten me to wake up or stay late or, send that one more message or reach out that one more time. It's all of these stories. Like, we had a Mexico City director who let me know in under 1 year, her salary had increased 200%. And one of the first Atlanta directors, inside of the box, exactly who you'd expect to be doing incredibly well in their career, but incredibly shy and practicing leadership. And under a year went from, appearing timid to introduce herself to a small intimate room, to giving talks at standing room only crowds. There was the woman who walked up to me at a event that we did in partnership with Nike and GitHub, and she let me know that she'd been part of our Python community and that she was now a senior data scientist and was being flown across country to give talks, and that she would not have found that path had it not been for Women Who Code. So not only do we get to see these things happening in real time for these incredible high potential individuals in our community, but then we get to see how they grow to become the most influential, most powerful, women in the industry.
Those stories are amazing. And it makes me think about how important Applaud Her is, which is a really seemingly simple program avenue at Women Who Code. But it was one that was really important early on. Can you talk a little bit about how that concept was thought of and why it's really important to have the Applaud Her in the industry and in our day-to-day practice?
Yeah. So Applaud Her was just a practice that we started to kind of just celebrate the successes, the everyday career success that people in our community were having. And the idea is just, it's a little bit more difficult for women to talk about those successes. It's a little bit more difficult for society to hear us do it. And so, practicing it was really to overcome a deep cultural barrier that women face. And I didn't realize actually how important it was until I was having that conversation and said just that to a senior director of engineering, or at the time I thought she was a director of engineering. And she said, you know what, Alaina, I've been promoted to senior director and I've been embarrassed to update my LinkedIn profile. And my jaw just dropped, because something that's so validated as, you have a contract, you have a title, you probably have a pay increase. All of these pieces about this career success are incredibly validated. And so if she, in this circumstance, feels challenged to celebrate that win, it means every single day we are contributing to a project, or receiving a promotion, or giving advice, or helping someone out, or doing our job well, that we aren't championing these things, and we feel blocked from championing these things, and it actually is holding us back from our potential. And so that's when I realized how critical this seemingly kind of innocent and fun celebration actually was.
Definitely. And when I think back to our early days, some of the things that stand out for me is that we were dreaming really big. So even these really simple concepts, right? We were thinking about impact and the impact that we could make, and kind of asking, what if more people could be involved in this movement? What if we could make real change in the big things, right? The big industry change that's needed. And also those day-to-day moments that really impact people's lives. And so I'd love to kind of reminisce with you just a little bit around some of those themes that stand out from early days. So one was travel and meeting people. And I'd love to hear kind of some of the things that stand out for you around as we moved around the world, seeing how very much the world needed women who code, what that felt like, and what you observed and learned.
Yeah, I think, that opportunity to experience women who code in other cities and other parts of the world was just something that was incredibly meaningful and pivotal, and learning from our leaders around the world also has helped to make Women Who Code such a rich community. So the first thing that really stands out to me is that there was this like Women Who Code DNA that existed when we were in San Francisco, when we were in Atlanta, when we were in Taipei, when we were in Beijing, when we were in Bangalore, whatever city that we were visiting, whatever network that we were visiting, it felt like a Women Who Code event. It had that same Women Who Code DNA. And what I would hear from the community is they could be part of Women Who Code in their own city, and then reach out to the Women Who Code community as they were traveling either for work or for fun or for conferences, and have that exist and be just accepted and feel as though they belonged immediately. But then there was also this amazing thread where we would learn from our leaders around the world. And going back to the applaud her conversation, that was always something that we did kind of through the code review or through social media. And when we went to visit the community in Delhi, they did it in person. And just that, that clap where you said, hey, I've accomplished this month. And it's hard to do that. We've just said it's hard for women to do it. It's hard for us to hear it, and to have your community clap for you. It just it just sunk in for me how amazing it felt, and how amazing of an impact you could have just to celebrate these small wins. We our Connect conference, which, we are 7 years of Connect, that was started by volunteers. Volunteers had a vision for a conference, and now this has become a global theme that we are putting on every single year. And we had people from 92 countries attend our most recent Connect conference. And so there's this thread, this similarity, but also this opportunity for growth and learning.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I love when you mentioned the moment in Delhi. I was actually sitting here thinking about one of the early trips, maybe the first trip that we took as a team. We were at the time, I think, a team of 3. And it was for me literally around the world. So I left my home in Atlanta. I met you all in, not Berlin, somewhere in Germany. I don't remember where. We went to Bangalore, where we relaunched Bangalore with the support of VMware, which was amazing. In fact, I think VMware supported us at every leg of that journey, up to Delhi, over to Beijing, where we had leaders kind of coming in from different places, from Shanghai, from Hong Kong, and then on around to San Francisco, and then up to Seattle, where we had that very first Connect conference, and then back to Atlanta. So we literally circled the globe. And I think that the thing that just stood out to me so strongly in every city and every place we stopped was that, number one, it just felt like home. And I think that's what you're describing with that Women Who Code DNA, right? It felt like we belonged wherever we were. And I think that's something that women in tech are often, so often just missing, not having that you belong sense in the day-to-day. And what I found incredible about this community is it always felt like you were at home, and that you had someone that you could lean on that would support you and help you navigate whatever challenge it was you were facing that day. And that really stood out about our leaders around the world to me. And the second thing that really stood out is just how much they cared. They still care every day. They're making sure that this movement was coming to life then and continues to be sustained today. And that was the same in every city that we visited. And then that first Connect conference, so you mentioned that was led by volunteers, right? It was created by volunteers, that whole concept, because they said, hey, this is something the world needs, and we want to do it through Women Who Code. What are some of the big moments that you remember from that conference that were learning moments or things that stand out as highlights?
Yeah. Some of the key things that kind of stand out to me are just the amazing community feel, but at a bigger scale. So it was so much really put into this one moment, and just the phenomenal speakers. I remember we had one speaker, Tara Hernandez, who's now a member of Women Who Code's board. She gave her talk, and it was so popular that that people weren't able to get into the room. So she agreed to redo the talk the next day in the main keynote hall. And it was, again, incredibly well attended. And also that this small growing community was able to get the support of big partners. We had people flying in from all over the country and all over the world to be part of it, to speak at it, to support it. And so that was something that also just really stood out to me as an incredible game-changing moment that really has shaped the direction that Women Who Code has taken since then.
It's really funny because when I think about those moments, I think about how big we were playing. Like you said, kind of almost surprised that we could make the things happen that happened. And at the same time, behind the scenes, some things people like to ask me about is what was it really like? Like behind the scenes, the 3 of us were sharing a little hotel room in whatever hotel we could afford, and like making whatever we could make work out of kind of what I like to say is tape and glue. We were just kind of stringing it together. And then, of course, supported by this incredible volunteer just force. But I think we always played big, no matter what was happening behind the scenes. I know there were long periods of time where it felt like sleep wasn't even on the agenda, just trying to get things done and make things happen, because this movement was so important. But in that space, you were able to activate some really big players. So I think about our board from early on, our partners from early on. These were really influential leaders in the tech space with a lot of experience. What was that like? How did you put together that first board and start to get people to say yes to this work?
Yeah. So for me, it was always incredibly clear that the work that we were doing was very important. From the time we started moving forward with the nonprofit, I have found it, very easy to explain, what the need is, what the goal is, what role we are playing in that. And, being positioned in the Bay Area, and, having access to so many huge partners in that area. But I would love to kind of call out two particular, women who brought huge founding partnerships to Women Who Code, who, upon reflection, they believed in this mission when we were playing big. And, like you said, in the background, a incredibly small team sharing hotel rooms when needed.
Like I slept on your couch when I would come to San Francisco.
Exactly. Yeah.
It wasn't glam life at all.
Yeah. So the first one is Julie Elberfeld, and she was CIO at Capital One, and Capital One just was really actually making a commitment to investing in inclusive communities. And speaking to that, like, I put myself on an airplane and flew to Richmond, Virginia to have lunch with her. And this is, Alaina on a dream. And I met with her, and I was just blown away by her experience, by her history, by her, level and where she was in her career. And to me, this woman was exactly who needs to be elevated as a role model, because she, was a game changer. She was creating such influence and had so much power. And the world was only talking about, Sheryl Sandberg, Marissa Mayer, Ginny Rometty. And so it really hit me that there are so many, talented, successful women like this. So I talked to her, and, at the end of that meeting, she said, you know what? I actually have the decision-making power. We're in for 2 years. And that set us up for the success that we have come to. And then the second one is Lily Cheng, who is an executive at VMware. And she came and she said, you know what, I've heard about this. She was just the most straightforward. I'm interested in supporting this community. And year after year, she has gotten the backing of her company. She's helped integrate, VMware employees and initiatives with Women Who Code's mission and vision in profound and meaningful ways. One of the things that really stands out to me is that we have a partnership that's coming up on finishing its goal. It's a 3-year partnership to help retrain 15,000 women in India who've left their careers mid-career to be able to re-enter the workforce. We are pretty close to hitting that number at the 3-year mark. And we know that we've already helped 2,000 women return to over 900 companies. And so this is creating real change, not only in the lives of these individuals, but at the industry level, because if we and that partnership with VMware, if we weren't doing that, these women would be lost to the industry.
Yeah, definitely. And I think about the power, gosh, hearing all of these stories, I can see the faces behind a lot of this work. I think about, again, our volunteer force is just so important and powerful if they just have the right support, right? Like the program that you're talking about, one of the big supporters and champions of that has been Shweta Lakshman Rao, and she has been just an incredible voice out of Bangalore. I also think about the powerhouses like Cherie Atchison, who's really helped Women Who Code expand across the UK. And I think about those moments like that, like our board, and when I was sitting in Connect, the first one that we had with Twitter. And I'm sitting there and I'm surrounded by these people and I'm listening to these stories, and it's kind of coming to the forefront of my mind of understanding of who these people are and what they're doing in the world. And I'm sitting there listening to stories from people like Regina Wallace-Jones and Lisa Calhoun. And it's just kind of all starting to click of like, wow, you are doing it. You're living this every day. You're shaping our world. And it's just incredible. And I've been continuously amazed at the support and leadership that industry leaders have really provided to Women Who Code. So amongst all of these successes, there are definitely some moments that we learned from, and some people like to call those failures that are learning moments. How do you recover? How do you learn from mistakes and stumbling blocks and keep moving forward?
Yeah. So one thing that I say all the time, so I'm sure it's not new to you, but maybe if anybody's tuning in, it's new to them, is, it's okay to make mistakes. You will and you have to make mistakes. How you recover, how you manage, how you handle, how you learn from your mistakes is actually the piece that's important, because living life, running a company, being a human without mistakes is not possible. And so one of my favorite phrases that comes from Kim Bennett on our team is to move imperfectly forward. And so how do you recover? You learn. You do make the mistakes. You own up to the mistakes. You map out or take the steps to learn, prevent, to make the changes that you need to make. Failure will happen.
And if there are any co-founders listening, is there anything that you can think of that you would have just done differently if you could do it all again? Is there any moment in the founder journey or in the ramp up space that you can think of?
I would say I would have brought in people support earlier. One of the things that I didn't realize, and of course for internal in the organization as well, but one thing that really clicked for me is, we have 600 volunteers. So when you think of the size of our organization, actually, we have a lot of people to support. And the more you invest in your volunteers, your people, your advisors, your board, your community, having that structure in place earlier is actually what I would say is critical to do earlier.
Yeah, I think that's a really important pro tip for founders. I think mine, when I look back, is very much related to having the right people infrastructure in place. When I look back, I think you and I've talked a lot about mapping out Women Who Code and how there was this like 1.0 and 2.0 and 3.0. We didn't know as we were going forward, but when you look back, it's very easy to see, right, when the organization changed. And I think it was in our earliest kind of staffing growth year, we kept being as ambitious as we had been in the very early days when we were just getting things off the ground. And my pro tip for folks would be, as you invest in your people, also to recognize that as you do that, you actually have to slow down a little bit. And it's hard if you're in that founding mindset, that go mindset, growth mindset, it's really hard to slow down and to know when to slow down a little bit. Luckily, we have an amazing team and an amazing community. And so our massive dream, we learned from along the way and iterated on, and we were able to kind of tweak and refine it, and everything that needed to got across the line. So that was a really exciting moment, but I think it's hard to know. And even having gone through it, I'm not 100% sure that there's a clear indicator of when to start that slowing down process. But for sure, I think it aligns with that investing in your people. And it's just about resetting that mindset around people support. So it's been a really fun journey. We've talked about some of the big moments that have come out of it, like our first conference, that first kind of world tour. We didn't call it that then, but I remember it fondly as a world tour. What about ringing the bell at the New York Stock Exchange? So we did that twice. Talk about that. What was that like when you got the message saying, hey, you can come do this, and that whole experience?